Hello everyone, welcome to episode 60 of Floating Through Film. This week we conclude our series on Ozu, which is, a sad day for all of us.
Yes.
But that's the thing, like, it's kind of satisfying watching these two movies, and I was going to, talk about it before we get into the movie specifically, is, do you think Autumn Afternoon is like a finale movie? Because there are some directors that have movies where, like Paul Schrader right now comes to mind as a director that knows they're making their last movies. Yeah. So they're kind of making them knowing like this could be their last movie.
Yeah.
And it feels like kind of a swan song, even if they kept making movies to some degree.
Yeah.
But like, I guess I've kind of already spoiled it, but I don't know what you guys think. To me, in Autumn Afternoon, it's not like that. Like Ozu was not expecting to die when he died. He just turned 60.
Yeah.
When he died. He died on his birthday. But yeah, so basically, like, this movie, it just feels like another Ozu movie. Just another twist, kind of like he was going to just keep doing the same thing like he was doing,
Honestly,
yeah. But I don't know, what do you guys think about that? There are some aspects where you could look at it and be like, there's like, because the one that obviously comes to mind is the late spring connection.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, the Chishu-Ryu, like, it sort of feels like a farewell to Chishu-Ryu, like, in a way.
Yes, no, that moment for sure, yeah. So there are definitely moments.
Yeah, that's like the main connection, like, I could bring to, like, the final. But it does definitely, I do see what you're saying, though, it, like, definitely feels like he could have kept going, for sure. Like, it just felt like another perspective with Ozu. Yeah, but also, honestly, the color, I feel like, honestly, this might be probably his best looking color movie. So in a way that kind of fits, like,
is there anything specific? I can't say that. Like, I can't say that anything about one Ozu movie because it kind of just depends on my mood.
Floating Weeds is also, like, really
all of them, like Equinox Flower, honestly, because to me, at least my first impression is I think Equinox Flower might look a little better.
It's more like natural for sure.
I just like how the reds stand out a little more.
He uses a lot more it's a lot more natural. It's not as much eye popping. It's like,
true. But it just depends on your mood. That's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like it does kind of feel like a swan song, especially to like old Japan too. Like that's what I took away from it because there is a lot of red, white, and blue in this movie. Like, especially even on the poster. He goes to the Luna Bar. Yeah, like on the I love like that's one reason why I love the Criterion poster too because like the red, white, and blue stands out in that also.
For an autumn afternoon.
Yeah, for an autumn afternoon, which is obviously America's colors, and then like Chishu-Ryu is playing a retired or like someone that actually survived the war, like a captain of a ship that survived the war, and like all the bar scenes of them singing old Japanese march songs and stuff like that.
And not only that is he also that's where he sees the waitress that he says looks like his wife from who died in the war. Yeah, so just that other connection.
There are in some ways where it feels like a swan song, somewhat. But I mean,
those kind of moments aren't other Ozu movies.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm saying though. So it's like hard to separate versus.
I feel like it might
swan song versus that's just what happens in an Ozu movie.
I think it definitely does feel there's. Knowing the context that this was his last movie definitely contributes to that feeling like it though. Honestly, like if we watched this as soon as it came out and Ozu was still alive, there's a chance we might have not felt this way about it. Like we might have not gotten those vibes. But I think a lot of what might be happening is like we know it's his last movie.
Exactly,
so
that's
we're kind of expecting
it. Yes, and so we kind of already go in with knowing that.
Yes.
Like with Eyes Wide Shut and Kubrick or something.
Yes.
Kubrick did die unexpectedly.
Yes.
But yeah, it does have those moments too. Like, I don't think Chishu-Ryu had been in a Ozu movie for a while until this one too, which is another reason why
he was in Equinox Flower, just as like a bit part.
He was in a small.
But those are far like Equinox Flower is his first color movie, and this is his last.
He was in a small part in Floating Weeds too.
Yeah.
Oh, he does.
It's a smaller part.
Oh, it's a small part. Yeah.
So I guess if you're talking like main part though, it's probably.
And that father-daughter relationship, especially with the ending, where it's almost exactly like Late Spring. And we'll get to that, obviously.
Yes.
But you know how I've been doing each week, I have one basically word for form and one word for content. And this week, I was kind of struggling because, there's so much for each. And so I kind of wanted to like just stick to the basic. And I remembered I really hadn't talked about this specifically yet. So for form, I picked basically Ozu's camera, his low camera.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to ask you guys first, because I honestly had some like opinions on why I thought he did this before, but it's kind of changed a little bit. But I want to ask you first is, like, what stands out about Ozu's framing, his low camera,
and
more specifically, why do you think he does that?
Well, the his stationary camera, I think we've talked about it. It just adds to like the observational aspect. Like you feel like you're watching life actually happen. It honestly, it like in the moment, it honestly doesn't even feel like you're watching a movie though. Like you're like watching an actual family. And the low angle, I mean, there's probably some like more like, you know, philosophical reasons why he does it, but I sort of kind of think a lot of it is that like when people sit down, then the camera doesn't have to move with them or anything. Like it's at an angle with, if they sit down, you can like, it feels, it's much more, I don't know how you say it, like
it's like, I mean, that whole word natural, whatever that means, that's a complex word in itself.
Well, it's also like
sitting down feels more natural. If you're in a place and you're sitting down, it just feels more natural than if you're standing up.
Yeah.
Well, and it also just feels like you're sitting, like the camera's sitting. Basically.
Yes.
Like that's what it honestly kind of feels like, but which goes to what you were saying about like how you're just sitting on real life almost. But
and you kind of said, and I think we've already talked about this throughout the episodes, but like originally when I always thought about this. I always thought about it specifically with Ozu's, the way he filmed kids, and so like the reason I'd always thought about it when I first watched Ozu was like I always liked it because I thought he was trying to put the kids on the same level as everyone else in the movie.
Yeah,
you know, and I always appreciated that.
Yeah.
But really, like watching this more and realizing how strict he actually really is with these rules, and one of these is the low camera. It's not that he's trying to put the kids on equal level. It's kind of what you said, is he's trying to put everyone on the same level.
Yes.
You know, trying to be as objective as possible.
Yeah.
You know, at least with everyone in front of the screen.
Yes.
You know, to where it's not like, everyone gets treated with that low camera, not just kids. You know? And I was going to point out a few reasons why Bordwell thinks he has this low camera and like why he thinks it's so like powerful, basically. But one of the reasons he mentioned was when you have the same camera for everyone, like all the codes or like ways we associate with certain angles, they kind of just go away.
Yeah.
You know, so like normally when a camera looks up at a character, the character it's looking up at is like seen as the more powerful character, right? And vice versa. If it's looking down, like the person it's looking out at is seen as the weaker one.
Yes.
Right. But with Ozu, it's like it doesn't matter. Like everyone's filmed the same way, so at the end of the day, it kind of just doesn't matter. Like you could initially say, "Oh, the kids are only filmed this way," but it's really everyone. You know.
Yes.
So all those ways we normally associate with certain angles, certain framings, all those goes away because everyone's filmed the same way. So there's other ways. So that makes you have to focus on other ways to draw into what the filmmaker or what the characters think about each other.
Yeah.
You know. So I kind of wanted to go into more because I picked low cameras like specifically. That's just kind of an example of just Ozu has like a bunch of rules he basically follows.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want to go too deep, but he has like one rule where basically, if you watch his movies, he basically has kind of like a circle around every character he films, and that's why the characters are always spaced out a little bit, and that's why every character's framed straight on.
Okay.
And he has like Bordwell points out how like when Ozu like goes from shot to shot, he only goes in like 45-degree increments from the previous position his camera was in around these kind of circles he has.
Okay.
You kind of have to. He diagrams it out in his book, and it's more specific.
Okay. Wait, so like 45 degrees is like it's half of
like a quarter circle, basically.
A quarter, yeah. Okay.
He'll either go 45, sometimes 180. And that's when he
Okay.
flips. Sometimes he has the famous where he'll just flip 180 degrees and like show the other side of a person.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. Like when in conversations, I feel like
he does that sometimes. He calls those, or at least a lot of Japanese critics call those daunting cuts, where he'll just flip 180 degrees, which is, you know, normal filmmaking is supposed to be against the rules. You know, because they have that like what's it called, the 180 degree line or something.
Yeah.
Where usually when you film a dialogue scene, you're only on one side of that line. But okay, yeah, I didn't want to go too specific, but the reason why I picked low camera was Ozu has a bunch of these rules, and normally you would think that kind of like would restrict you in what you can do. Yeah. But I wanted to read a quote from. I won't name who the filmmaker is. I kind of wanted you to guess.
Oh, okay.
But it's like you could name that. You could basically think this is Ozu saying this.
Yeah.
But quote: "For all true creation, you need rules and limits, and a predetermined space paradoxically permits you a much wider field for creation. The closed settings that I employ leave me few choices, and curiously create a lot of obstacles. But so much the more can I exercise my freedom to deepen what counts the most, the heart of the subject."
So he wants to guess what it is?
Yeah.
Bresson?
No.
Okay.
I'll say this: it's a director you've seen more than I have.
Okay. Hold on. Okay.
Both of you have.
Oh, what?
I'll give you 5 seconds.
No. I want to start like. Let's do some 20 questions. You know?
Let's do some 20 questions.
French filmmaker, American filmmaker,
Italian filmmaker,
No.
American,
Taiwanese.
Mm-hmm.
Taiwanese?
It's Tsai.
Oh, okay. How?
It's how.
Let's go.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Makes so much sense.
I was saying
you've seen like just as much.
I've only seen this is. I was gonna say this because I was saying with the podcast. I've seen The Puppet Master.
Oh, I've seen.
That's the only one I've seen before today. Because the other one I watched today was his Ozu homage, Cafe Lumiere.
I've only seen 2.
I just didn't watch that one. So.
Oh, dude, it's great. It's great watching Ozu because it kind of has a. I won't give it away. Actually, I won't give anything specifically away, but no, it's great. But when I read that, it's like, damn, that's exactly why Ozu chooses all these rules he has, where it's like he will never move the camera. You know, like he'll never reframe for an actor. It's because those rules gives him more creativity in how he's going to do other stuff within the frame, you know? Yeah. So, like, one small example of that is, if you notice all the little objects in Ozu, like, almost, sometimes within shots, but even within scenes, the objects will just move around a little bit. You know, just sometimes to make them frame perfectly, but just sometimes to give the impression of, you know, objects move around your house. Like,
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, no, I kind of love that how quote. I want to read. I want to watch more of his movies because apparently he'd only came to Ozu like after his like first 3 or 4 movies.
Yeah, you mentioned this last week.
Yeah. And so I kind of want to see like kind of that change of because he still calls Ozu a huge influence on him, but like I'm curious. But he didn't watch him. Like he had still made a few movies before he hadn't seen Ozu.
Do you see the influence play? Because I know you've seen.
No, I do see the influence now that I've watched Ozu. Because I watched a lot of How before I watched Ozu. So
no, it's interesting that the Cafe Lumiere is interesting because he doesn't follow Ozu's rules like with the low camera and stuff. 100%. Like he has his own. He still does his own thing of moving panning the camera a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's still like. It still feels. You can tell he's trying to have Ozu themes and stuff too, and there's a lot of Ozu in it. So
yeah.
It's kind of amazing to watch. It's like kind of my favorite thing where you can tell filmmakers like inspired by another filmmaker, but they still have to put their own self in it too.
Yeah.
So that's how you get something new basically. But yeah, that's okay. Actually, I had a few more things I wanted to point out specifically about what Bordwell said about the low camera. Because a lot of people, I guess, a lot of critics will say like why he has the low camera and why he puts it in the same spot is because he wants people to think it's an independent observer that's watching that's outside of any of the characters. And Bordwell says like that's not really possible because first of all the camera actually even though it feels like it's in the same spot, he does cut away a lot. He does cut to close-ups, he does cut to other objects and stuff. You know, so like that whole like at certain points it'll feel like it's just like a camera sitting there watching, but it's not like that because he does cut away. You know, it is still more. There's still a lot more editing going on than if you would think of like a guerrilla documentary filmmaking where it's just staying in one spot, you know, hiding in the bushes or something. You know, it's still way more like
it's not like
filmmaking than just a documentary, even though it feels documentary.
It's not. I think Schrader called in his slow cinema graph. He called it like there's a section called surveillance cam, and I feel like Ozu's taking that, but like more he's like cutting around.
Yeah, he has aspects of it, but he also has very much the other aspects where he's still cutting the close-ups of people when he wants you to see them specifically or something. You know, he has his own combination. And that's kind of why I like doing. That's why I like doing the Mayor Circle, especially in the first week, because he still has. He has the documentary aspects, but he has the exact opposite aspects too of the very Hollywood. Kind of, you know, cutting into objects, very in-your-face editing a lot of your times.
Yes.
He has both sides of that to him. Which I really love. But yeah, that's kind of what basically all I had with the low camera. And the main thing I wanted to say about that was the low camera is just kind of his most in-your-face rule, but he has so many rules that he follows. And that's kind of how he's able to film basically where it feels like he's filming the same subject, and he is filming the same subjects a lot of times. But every time you watch the movies, they feel different in a lot of ways because it's a weird combination where they all feel the same. They feel like an Ozu movie.
Yeah, like it's like
they feel like the same subject,
but
yet when you're in the movie, you're like, damn, this is a lot different than the other one I just watched. You know. So, and then I guess for the content before we get into the movies itself, and this is the word really kind of why I picked Ozu in the first place, and I guess when I say the word, you'll understand why. So the word is time. And because I think I told you guys I read that book called The Time Image by Deleuze a few months ago, and the reason why I picked that book in the first place is because I knew he had wrote about Ozu, or he had said Ozu was the director that really introduced what he called the time image.
Okay.
And without getting too much details and everything, the gist of it, at least into a certain aspect of it, is he says Ozu is really the director that made film kind of reflect back on itself. To make you think of... I don't know if you guys remember when I talked about The Tale of Princess Kaguya, and I mentioned how the ending made it feel like the film is about the film itself rather than any of the specific characters. It's kind of like just about time or death itself rather than any of the specific characters. And that's what Deleuze says kind of Ozu started, what he calls the time image, where it became less about what he calls the movement image, or more action, I would say is. Yeah. Where, if you think of like a typical superhero movie, where the plot is usually about the characters have to do something to save something, and then they win at the end, or something.
Or something.
Generally, But basically, you see what I'm saying, right? There's like some kind of resolution, and the characters are very involved in that resolution.
Yes.
But he says, like, with Ozu, and you can probably find films before this too, where the characters have no control over what's happening in the movie. They're just like, this is where you can get more documentary feel, right? It's not like there's not some plan at the end to where they can solve the marriage situation and everyone's happy, and everything works out or something. It's just like, that's what life is. It just it happens this way, and the characters are just as helpless as we would be in that situation. And we almost have to help. We have to watch them be helpless in their situations. And remember, I mentioned this with neorealism too. This has that same kind of aspects, right? Where the characters the characters in the movies don't even have hope in their situation, so that's why I picked time. That's why I picked time in general. And I think, once I read that more specifically, I felt like Ozu really clicked for me in a whole new way. And a lot of movies clicked for me in a whole new way because of that. Because if you think about Ozu's movies, when I say time, to me, I can't separate time and the word death. Because they kind of... and not only death of a person, like a death of a situation you're in, right? A death of you and your daughter living together.
A relationship.
A relationship, right? A death of
ideals.
Yes, exactly, right? A death of tradition. Right?
Yes.
But it's not necessary... And this is why I picked the word time. And I want you guys to talk before I... just keep talking forever, but the reason why I like the word time over death, because when people think of the word death, they just think negative, and for some good reason. It is
they only think of physical death.
They think of physical death, but they think of only negative, right? It's like something bad happening.
Yes.
But time has at least a little more positive aspect to it. But to me, they're very similar words, right? Like the reason why we feel like we're running out of time or we have time is because we know eventually not only we're going to die, but we know I have to go to sleep at some point today. And my body's going to break down if I don't sleep at some point. So this day is going to end at some point. So I'm running out of time, literally, even today. Right. So that's why I like Ozu makes you think about these concepts a lot of ways, right? Like, what are the relationships in your own life, and are they are they almost ending, or are they just starting? Stuff like that. Like, in ways that I think only film can do. But the word time, like, does anything come to your mind that you guys want to say when I mention
about Ozu?
Yeah, about Ozu and time, really.
Well, just like time not even being like just death, but time is just, it's gonna sound corny, but it really is like the flow of time is just death and rebirth. Like, that's all it is.
No, exactly.
And that's what, I mean, all of Ozu's movies are basically about.
No,
is like, I know we've said this in multiple, and probably multiple, maybe every episode, but like, something has to die for something new to start, because he shows that in basically all of his movies.
I also think about how we've talked about as well, like how his movies really don't exist outside of the time that they're in. Like, there's no flashbacks or anything, or like it's all very much in.
No, it's very much forward only, right? Like, there's no hope of a flashback that's going to save you, or anything like that. And I forgot to read it last week, but Ozu did have a quote when he said what early summer was about. And it kind of goes with what we've been talking about. He said, quote, "I wished to portray the cycle of life or mutability rather than the action itself." Right? So rather than any one character's even when we say like the movie's about a daughter getting married, it's never only about the daughter getting married. It's about how is that affecting everyone around them, that daughter.
Yeah.
You know? And I watched this documentary that's on the Criterion Channel that's amazing. I highly recommend, called I Lived But. Have you guys seen that on there?
I haven't, but I saw your Twitter conversation about it.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah. No, because it's... I guess they brought Ozu's cinematographer back to film it. So it's filmed a lot like Ozu film and stuff. He interviews a lot of people that work with Ozu. And like he goes back to like his high school friends and stuff like that too. So awesome. Like basically all of his career. Like, because one of the people that shows up is Kinoshita.
Yeah,
because Kinoshita was a Shoshiko director too.
Yeah.
Studio director.
Yeah.
So he worked with under Ozu when he started out.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Him and I think I mentioned Shoei in
You did mention him.
Yeah, both of them were interviewed in it and stuff. A lot of the actresses are interviewed.
Awesome.
But they mentioned in that Kogonada, his a writer basically from Late Spring onwards, mentioned when they were writing On an Afternoon that the way they started writing the movie was they would basically figure out what the daughters wanted and her needs were. And then all the other characters would be based around that kind of central idea. But that's kind of what I was saying is, but it's never about that single character.
Yeah.
It's kind of about everything that affects, that how that ending affects everyone.
It might start from there, but they're thinking about everyone involved, not just where it starts.
Yes.
Because a lot of movies would just stop there.
Yes. And that's kind of why I like the word time, kind of to close it off rather than just death, is because time implies that there's more than just death, right? Like you're saying, there's rebirth too, right? Like when something dies because of time, that means something's starting again.
Yeah.
And I wanted to read a quote that I was saving it for this episode, but it's about the vase. That what he wrote about the vase and kind of his interpretation of it.
Okay.
So, quote: "The vase in late spring is interposed between the daughter's half smile and the beginning of her tears. There's becoming, change, passage. But the form of what changes does not itself change, does not pass on. This is time itself, a little time in its pure state, a direct time image, which gives what changes the unchanging form in which the change is produced." Basically what he's saying is that last part is, time is the thing that doesn't change, but the definition of it is everything that inside it changes.
Yeah.
And honestly, it just got me to think, like, Ozu is the classic example of that, right? It's like, his movies are not depressing because in every moment where you see something ending, even the characters are a little more aware of there's something new starting. Like, this kind of has to happen. It's not like a melodrama where everything's ending, but everyone's just crying about it or something, or like, they can't accept that it has to happen. It's like the characters they accept it more.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, like, there's that quote in Early Summer where it's like Noriko saying, "I'm sorry I broke the family up," and her brother just saying, "It's not your fault. It was inevitable." Basically, like
yes. And
they all knew it was about to. They all knew it was going to happen eventually. So.
Yeah. Or think about the what the dad tells to Noriko at the end of Late Spring on their last vacation. Their kind of conversation.
Yeah.
When he has like the Nietzsche book and everything.
Yeah.
And he tells him basically tells her this has to happen. And this is kind of. Before we get to the movies, this is maybe my last point. This is why Ozu's movies give basically it's basically why he's one of my favorite directors and why I find him so inspiring is that he sees in the Late Spring Conversation is a great example of when he's telling her basically if you get basically you can't be scared of starting something new because you have to create happiness yourself, and the only way you can do that is by starting something new. Not just you can't just have the same old way just because you're comfortable in that same way. And I think Ozu's movies, with still being extremely realistic, still shows that you can still have some kind of hope in the future.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I love about his movies is because when you describe them on the surface, they sound depressing or they sound like melodramatic. But then when you actually watch the movies, they give you more hope of there is still more happiness in the future that you can't create yourself. Yeah. But yeah, do you guys have any thoughts on that before we go to the movies? Last thoughts?
Nah.
No.
You said it very well.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right. Okay, Equinox Flower, his first color movie. Is there anything that comes to mind? What do you guys like about this one?
Well, I really liked how it's basically about he's looking at the hypocrisy of the older generation when it came to marriage now being free choice marriage being like now a thing in Japan. Like she's showing him from the angle of this father outwardly, if it's not him, if it's not someone he's close to, he's completely fine with it. But when it comes to if he's affected by it, then he's like closed off and he's very like traditionalist, which is something that happens a lot with like a lot of things nowadays too, like racism and all this stuff. You know, like you don't. You're fine with it until it actually affects you, basically. And that's probably what my favorite part about it, yeah.
No, because I remember, I think I said this maybe last week, a couple weeks ago, about how there's like, in a few of those movies we watch, how there's like a character that is telling the main character to still get married even though their marriage is going badly.
Yes.
That kind of hypocrisy, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like very similar to his situation too, where he's like a modern man on the outside, where he's like, you know, giving the speech at the beginning where he's like, I wish I had a marriage where I had a love marriage too instead of an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
But then when his daughter wants one, like, you know, all of a sudden he's against it and everything.
Yeah.
So basically that kind of double-sidedness, you know. But what about you, Blake? What comes to mind with it?
No, I love that too, but I just love the female characters in this because we have a variety of them. Honestly, my favorite one might be the girl that like plays the trick on him.
Yeah.
Because she's like it's so weird because I mean obviously Ozu knows this, but she's maybe the most modern of the girls, but she's also maybe the most traditional because she doesn't want to get married. She wants to stay with her mom in the end to like protect her. She's also the only one wearing kimono the entire time, basically. Like she's like I don't know. There's
sounds
a lot
like a very similar theme, though.
Yeah. No, it is. But
we
like,
said this about Noriko too, with late spring.
Yeah, but
in early summer.
It's just it's also a fun movie. Like it's very lighthearted. It wasn't as lighthearted as I was expecting. So
honestly,
it was more lighthearted.
This one is it definitely is. No, that's why I love this one a lot too.
Because like the things that would normally happen in maybe like one of his more like melodramatic movies, like the father would actually maybe not go to the wedding at the end, you know. But I just love how he realizes like that trick really made him realize like I'm being an idiot, basically.
Made him look at himself.
Made him look at himself in the mirror, you know.
Yeah. You know, I was going to ask. Maybe we'll have to save it, but I don't know. Do you think he ever has that full realization of I was being an idiot? Because to me, it's more like
maybe not the full one, because ego.
I guess we can talk about it now. Because I was going to mention one of the themes of the movie that Bordwell pointed out that I wanted to mention before we got into it is basically he says there's two different aspects or phases of the father's drama, and he is kind of like. This gets into even though every film is about a daughter, a lot of films are about a daughter getting married. Every film is about a different aspect of that to some degree, and this one is more about how the father directly deals with a daughter that doesn't listen to him.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. But basically, he says there's two aspects of that drama. Basically, the first is allowing her to marry who she wants, which he does. He really never. He kind of is against it, but he never basically forces her to be. You know, he never stops her really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he does like lock her in the house basically, but
he doesn't lock her. He says you're going to decide for a day. Like he basically, to me, I read it as more he's trying to show all the power he can, knowing he's at the end he's not going to be able to stop it. If he basically he can't do anything about it at the end. But he says the second aspect of it is how does he reconcile with the fact that she did it without ever even talking to him about it.
Yeah.
And that's what he says really hurts them at the end. It's not only that she's getting married to someone that they didn't pick, but she never even tried to talk to them about it or anything. You know, and like that kind of goes with the whole aspect of Ozu's films that are about very personal things that go on in human relationships, but they're also kind of about the whole idea of modernity leaving a lot of traditional aspects behind.
Yeah.
You know, and like the dad is a good example of basically he's helpless of modernization happening of his daughter basically getting married to who she wants, doesn't even have to talk to him about it, and it still happens, and he still has to go to the wedding.
Yeah. And
that's kind of how I see it is I don't know if he has that full on realization of, oh, my daughter, I should let her get married. He kind of just like he gets tricked. And he's like, they kind of got me, you know?
Oh, they got him.
And he lets it happen, and but then he says he doesn't want to get married. He's not going to go to the wedding.
Yeah.
But I guess should we save it for the end, maybe, because we're going to a specific.
Yeah, we can save it for the end, I guess.
fuck it. We'll just say it now because I'm already in the middle of my thought. To me, the reason why he decides to go to the wedding is not because he has some change of heart. Is
appearances.
It's remember when they're at the golf, like he's playing golf.
Yeah.
And his friend has a conversation with him where he says something like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll walk her down the aisle. It'll all be okay." And then he comes home and he's like, he tells his wife, he's like, "It's not because I want. It's not nice." He even says something. It's not because I want to go. Because all our friends are going to be there.
Yeah.
And to me, it's almost like he's saying it's almost like the reason why he didn't want her to marry just this random guy is because of what his friends would think. Is the same reason he's not going to the wedding. Is because what his friends would think.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's never. It's not his own choice in either case. That's how I see it. But I don't know. You guys could disagree with me about that.
No, I don't fully disagree with you at all. I do think deep down he does only want his daughter's happiness. Like, I do think that's the reason he ends up going, because we see later on the very last scene is him going to visit them also. Yeah. Basically, because he was tricked.
Yes.
But that's what I'm saying. He doesn't ever fight against this because deep down he really wants to do it. It's just he needs this to happen, basically, because he's such a proud traditional man, basically, is how I see it also.
It's kind of both, though.
But, it's definitely both. Yeah. It's definitely both.
I mean, he's pointing out the stubbornness of the older generation while also...
But to me, it's more like it's not only they're stubborn, it's like they can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's almost like Bordwell points out, the song they sing at the reunion.
Yeah.
Apparently it was a very famous patriotic war song put out.
It makes sense because he ends it whenever they're winning still, and then they say why don't you finish it? And he doesn't want to, but
when they
but because I want to know how it ends. I don't know how it
song,
ends. But they end during a victorious part of the song, so it makes you think that it doesn't end well in the song or something. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, no, because the reason why I wanted to bring it up as a war song is The Bordwell points out how it's kind of a funny scene in terms of they're singing this old war song of they want this traditional past back kind of thing, like we're talking about tradition in general. They kind of want this old traditional past, but they basically they drink Coke and they play golf. They do a lot of Western things now. And it just kind of reminds me of you see this all over the world. You see this in America, where literally Trump's slogan was "Make America Great Again."
Yeah.
This glorified past that we think of. But we still enjoy a lot of the modern stuff anyway, But, damn, I kind of lost my thought of what I was going to say before that. But anyway, I was going to mention, before we go in specifically to the movie, is Ozu, another point of why I think this movie is about the father specifically, is Ozu had a quote was, quote, about the father is, when his daughter is taken by another man, the father's jealous and he feels something physical and primitive. And it's a kind of funny way to look at the movie, but it's more of a that's why I think what you said earlier is correct about it being a lighthearted movie is it's kind of that kind of take of a jealous and primitive father, but in a comedy setting, and it's that's why I think that whole helpless aspect is such a big part of it, even to the very end. Oh, no, okay, I remember what I was going to say. With the very last shot of him going on the train after he's been tricked by.
Tricked again.
Yeah, tricked again. The reason why I think it's so funny is he's singing that patriotic war song from earlier.
Yeah.
But you would think of a traditional war you would think of being sent off by generals or something. But in this one, he's been sent off by 3 women.
Yeah.
And he literally has no control. So it's kind of almost Ozu poking fun of this is the modern world. Back in the day, men were being sent off by men, but now they're being sent off by women. And it's on a train too, specifically. Because Ozu ends a lot of his movies on by train.
He does,
just constantly, they're basically the symbol of modernization for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else specifically that you want to mention? Anything specifically you want to mention about Equinox Flower generally before we go in? I should mention the color. Is there anything specifically about the color? Because this is Ozu's first color movie. Is there anything that stands out about the color?
I said it earlier, but if it's he's being like more naturalistic with it. It's not as like eye-poppingly like obvious. The color isn't like as eye-popping like pop. It doesn't pop out
except for red.
I will say the teapot.
Yeah,
the teapot pops out.
Yeah,
he uses a lot of like.
Well, because the teapot is the thing that where you were talking about earlier about objects moving. I know it's the teapot moving, probably because it was red.
Yes,
but
yes,
but like he uses a lot of wood, like wooden color, and
yeah,
like it. Well, I feel like in Autumn Afternoon and stuff, it's like he's like overloading you with it, which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all. Like,
you know, there's I can see
it's amazing. Like, what's the difference? Yeah.
Damn. Oh yeah, there was in that I Live But documentary. There was this. They interviewed a cartoonist that was friends with Ozu, and he said he was the one that got. I don't know if he says he was the one that got Ozu, but he talked about a conversation of how he got Ozu to do color, basically, or a conversation he had about it. And he said, first everyone. This is what he told Ozu. He said, first everyone went to sound. Even Chaplin came around. And now everyone's using color too. It's time. Stop holding out like Chaplin did with sound. Make a color film.
Make a color film.
So that's what got Ozu to make color, and he was right.
He was right.
Because Ozu was, I guess he held out with sound too. He didn't want to do sound right away.
Yeah. Was that?
Well, that was just Japan.
Was that dig at Chaplin though?
No, he was just saying how Chaplin held out with sound.
Okay.
Don't be like Chaplin with color. Basically.
I'm saying I don't know. Like, is he digging him though?
No, I don't think so. I hope not. Okay. But I think we can start getting to the movie. The movie starts basically. I have it in my notes, kind of like 5 sections. So you'll have to, if I skip anything, you'll have to go over. But basically, the first part of the movie starts with we kind of mentioned earlier with the father at the wedding giving the speech, and this is like. It's fun to go back and talk about an Ozu movie going backwards because when you're watching it, I mean, have you guys? Was this your first time watching these?
Yeah,
it was my second time.
But did you remember like the story? Kind of like what with the father, with knowing what's going to happen with the father as he gives that speech.
My first time. Or are you talking about my first time?
Yeah, or this time, either one.
Well, this time I already knew.
Okay, you knew. So like that. Because if you had forgot or if you didn't know, you watch the father give the speech of, he seems like a more modern guy.
Yeah.
It's like, he's literally giving a speech about, I wish I had a love marriage.
Yeah.
And he kind of, it seems like a kind of a dig at his wife or something, but
it does a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, I would have done different things differently.
It's also kind of a bit jarring to see a bit jarring to see a Ozu movie being at a wedding, like actually at a wedding too.
That's true.
Yeah,
like we get an Ozu wedding, but it's actually not a wedding; it's a reception. So,
okay.
But still, you're right. We don't even get a reception.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Oh, that is. No, and another interesting part about this first scene is we get. I don't know if you remember a shot of the hall. Ozu has a lot of hallway shots like this, but there's a mountain and a picture of a mountain.
Mount Fuji.
But that's the Shoshiko logo.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of his homage to Shoshiko. But then that kind of what leads us to right after is the friends drinking together. But yeah, the reason why they're drinking together, why the scene is important is we learn that Shishiryu, who's a friend in this one, we learn that he didn't come to the wedding because it reminded him too much of his own daughter. That basically, I don't know if she's not run away because she's an adult, but basically they're not talking because
she chose her own husband or boyfriend. Yeah,
and this is kind of like a good example of basically I've mentioned in some I think previous episodes how Ozu loves parallels, where he kind of compares 2 relationships or 2 couples or something like that, or 3 daughters or whatever. And this one, it's the main father that has his daughter that has to get married. But before we've even been introduced to that main plotline, we've already seen one daughter get married. We already have another character who has his own daughter that's basically run away from him and is living with someone else, basically having his own daughter issues like this.
Yeah.
So basically he's kind of showing, basically the way I see it, and maybe you guys see it differently, is it's like Ozu showing these kind of threads of almost like he's saying these could have been their own Ozu movies.
Showing there's a wide variety.
Yeah, it's a wide variety. This could be a different Ozu movie if we chose these characters, because I'm pretty sure it's an Equinox Flower, but it might be an On Afternoon. Especially with these minor scenes, it's easy to get confused.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm pretty sure it's in this one where he, the father, when he's at his work, he talks to one of his employees who says she's also has to get married.
Yeah.
No. He talks to a woman, an employee of his. She says another employee's getting married, and then he asks, "Why aren't you getting married?" And she's like, I can't get married. I still live with my father, and he needs me."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Damn, that's exact. That would be in a different Ozu movie. The camera would follow her. Her story.
Pretty sure that happens in both of these movies.
It might happen in both.
Well, because I know in Afternoon, he asks his secretary, "You need to get married because you're 20." Or he asks her how old she is, and she says 24. He says, "Oh, you're the same age as my daughter."
Yeah.
So that does happen in both movies, at least. But
no, yeah. I mean, it's not surprising. That's what I'm saying. There's always these kind of similar things happening.
Yeah.
But that kind of gets us to there's already quite a few scenes that's already gone on. That's kind of what I'm talking. When you said earlier about this movie being more lighthearted, it's kind of like he spends his time on the exposition of getting to know these characters before we get introduced to the crux of the movie, which is they want their older daughter to get married. I think they talk about it at the house before she comes home, and it's already hinted at because the younger daughter, they have 2 daughters, and the younger daughter says something like, I already know I'm getting a love marriage. I don't need you guys' help.
Yeah.
And the father, he could have said, you would think, like, if he's more traditional, he would say something against her.
Yeah.
But he doesn't say anything. He just, like, basically, it kind of ignores her.
Yeah.
And they talk about, the oldest daughter in this one is named Setsuko. They talk about her marriage instead. But then she comes home and she basically tells them, actually, has she told them already? I don't know. Actually, she doesn't tell them in this one, I don't think.
No, she never tells them. In this one, the guy comes in and confronts the dads, or doesn't confront him, but like basically asks if he can marry his daughter.
Yeah, so she hasn't told him yet.
No, yeah, she doesn't tell him anything. In this
the way
one.
it's hinted is that it was with the youngest daughter.
Yeah.
But they're just talking about they need to find someone.
Yeah.
For her. But no, the reason why I like this scene though is because the scene ends with, I haven't talked about her yet, but Kanoyo Tanaka, she's the mom in this one. Because she's in a few Ozu movies, but she's the mom. I love her character in this one.
She's great in this one.
But she has a funny line at the end of this one because the dad says something like he has to go to his he has to go to a work funeral tomorrow or something, and she says something like, it's so confusing. One day on a wedding, the next day a funeral. And it's like that just like describes Ozu in general. Yeah, you know, like that's Ozu in general. Like he shows both.
They're the 2 constants. Basically.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but they're the 2 most. Literally, like I've said about death and time, like those two events are like some of the biggest events in a lot of people's lives.
They're like the gates of each, gates of life, basically.
Yes, exactly. No, but basically, yeah. So we still don't know that she's getting married, or she has basically a suitor already who she works with. But then the next scene is, which is kind of funny, is we're introduced to. In my notes, I called her the hospital woman. But I don't know. She's basically from somewhere else. I don't know how she's related to them. If you know, but you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
She's the talkative one. You know, the one who's trying to set up her own daughter.
The mom of the daughter that I was talking about before. That I liked a lot. So.
Yeah, I don't know what we should. I forgot her name.
She's an innkeeper. I know that much. Okay. Where he likes to go and stay.
Yeah. Okay. In the country or wherever it is.
Wherever that is. Yeah.
No, but yeah, she comes to visit him at his work, and it's really funny how It's really funny how they're introduced because they're kind of like small moments, but at least I noticed at this time is because they're talking for a little bit first, and she's kind of basically telling him what's happening and how she's trying to set up her daughter and everything.
Yeah.
And he says something like, "I have to go to the bathroom," and it shows a long scene of him walking out. He tells his assistant to get the woman some coffee or something, and he just walks into his own office. And then it shows him just start working, and it hangs on him for working a while, then it cuts away. Yeah. Basically, he lied to her, like to get away from her.
Yeah.
It's so funny, dude. Because I'm pretty sure the next scene is. So basically, it's kind of implied, at least in my head, that she's known as like kind of like a talkative, annoying woman.
Yes.
Because the next scene is her. Now she goes to visit the mom.
Yeah.
Tanaka at home, and she does something really similar. Where when she comes to sit down, she's like, "Sorry, I had to go to the bathroom first. I know how much you talk."
Yeah.
And her laugh is so funny. I recorded it.
That's not creepy.
I screenshot. No, it's not creepy because it's so funny because she laughs like the polite laugh where like, you know, if you're laughing if you're not listening to someone.
Yeah.
Where she laughs and then her face like gets silent. She gets still when she realizes what she said, and then she just changes the subject really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny, dude. Basically, like just little moments like that where like. You can see how characters relate to each other just based on, you know, we see stuff that maybe the other character doesn't see right after.
Yeah. You
know, like him going to his office instead of the bathroom or something. But yeah, you guys have any thoughts on that? I mean, I've skipped over a lot of stuff, so I don't know. Like,
we haven't skipped over that much. I don't think.
Okay, so then maybe because it does cut from the mother's talking, it cuts to the daughter's talking.
Yeah.
Basically, kind of
setting the parallel.
They're kind of talking about they're having the same problems. Yeah, they're stating out the parallel basically of they're both dealing with the pressures of marriage and they're trying to deal with it in their modern way, their own ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where they come to the agreement of, I guess. This is like the closest Ozu will come to giving us a hint of something later, a foreshadowing or something, where they say, okay, we've come to agreement of to help each other no matter what. And this is supposed to be our foreshadowing of, when she does trick him at the end.
Yeah.
This is why the reason why that happened basically, of the friends agreeing to help each other like this. Maybe for a more general discussion before you keep going to specifically is, do you think the daughters are disrespectful to their parents, or like especially with the tricking of the father?
I just think they're young and like. I just sort of feel I take it as they're young and they. I don't know if I would just say rebel, but like they want to do their own thing, It's not just like.
Yeah, like do you I think most people when they would watch it they would take the daughter's side from what I would guess.
I mean yeah.
But do you think there's anything wrong with what the daughters did, especially her, basically lying to her dad to get married?
No,
and never really showing any growth.
I thought it was more just like her showing
his hypocrisy.
Yeah, his hypocrisy, basically, like trying to.
Yeah, it's also just more so like this is a more lighthearted movie, but like in the different Ozu movie or something like that, this would be like the father's wake up call, like. Why can't the daughter tell me this, basically, like that she's like dating someone, which I'm pretty sure that's something in Tokyo Twilight, maybe, where Chishiryu, like his daughter doesn't tell him anything because she doesn't trust him with anything, and he asks why, basically, and that's like something that in a movie like more melodramatic like that, the father would think in this, but that's I think what Ozu's trying to say, like. He's trying to make us think, like, why can't the father see this, basically, like why can't he see that, but...
Oh, yeah.
Or, like, why can't the father see, like, why the daughter isn't telling him anything?
Yes.
Basically.
Yes. Just kind of...
Because, like, it's implied that she tells her mom, at least.
Yeah.
The mom
or maybe
knows,
not...
I don't know.
Like, because the mom... Well, I mean, I'm pretty...
The mom... Because I remember the scene where the father asked, "Did you know did you know about this already or something?"
Yeah, and she says no.
Yeah, I don't think she's. Yeah, she kind of is.
But then she's also she's the in between that also helps. Or she's like taking. I like the parallels between her and the daughter because you can see exactly why she's taking her daughter's side on everything because their marriage was obviously a forced marriage or an arranged marriage, not forced, but like an arranged marriage and. While they don't have the worst marriage ever, like it's obviously not as happy as it could be.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want the same thing to happen to her daughter.
Yeah.
So I honestly, that's why I think the daughter has at least told her mom things.
Because there is differences, like in early summer, it feels like both the parents are more on the same side.
Yeah.
And in this one, she does she calls him out, like basically stating what we've been saying is how he's a hypocrite, basically saying like. You're being inconsistent, and he says something like, "Only the gods are consistent." That's what life is a consistency.
Yeah, well, and whenever she's telling him about, like, she's literally basically telling the dad about, what's the daughter's name, Setsuko? About her boyfriend, saying how good of a guy he is, and then the dad's like, "How do you know him so well?" So that's just another thing that makes me think, like, she's met him more times than she's let on, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, or she just, like, cares what her daughter says and takes that into more of an account than what her husband says for her life. But
and to me, like, this is why I think she's. I've said this throughout the episodes, and I wanted to mention on this one too. Is there's always a character that's kind of they are more aware of what's happening more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And to me, she's that one. She's the character in this one where I don't think she's fully on her daughter's side because I think she is still disappointed about her daughter not telling them about who she was going to marry and stuff. But I do think she's not on her husband's side all the way either. In terms of like the way I see it, she's kind of more. She's just accepted that this has to happen. It's basically going to happen already. The daughter's already decided. Like there's no point in us fighting it. Yeah. We might as well just try to be on their side too and help them. And that's why there's like this kind of where we are in the movie anyway. This next scene is the last day out, the vacation scene together with them on the side of the water, where they're talking about basically. She says something like, "I kind of miss the war times when we were all together, because like they mentioned something about when they were bombing, they had all had to huddle together and stuff.
Yeah.
And she says how she misses that kind of past, and he says something like, "I don't miss those times at all.
Yeah.
At least we're way more comfortable now." And it's kind of one of those moments where you can see why they're both right. It doesn't come to a resolution of that one of them is right, one of them is wrong. It just ends with you can see why she would miss those times of them all being together. When they're little kids.
Yeah.
But you could also see where he's coming from. But it was there was a war going on.
Yeah. We were being bombed.
Yeah, we were being bombed. We didn't know we were gonna have food and stuff.
Yeah.
And at least we're way more comfortable now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where they're kind of both right. That's just life. It's you can't have it all the time.
Well, and you could also you only really remember like the good parts of life when looking back, basically.
No, and that's why Bordelwell points out this scene later which makes it so funny with the last scene of the reunion when they're all singing about the past. Yeah. And what makes it so funny with him specifically is when he's talking about his family, he says he misses the war times. But when he's with his friends, he's like singing about how great the war. He's nostalgic about that past.
Yeah.
So really, he kind of has that same nostalgia that she does too. Maybe he just doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's what's powerful about film is like we can talk about, and I like talking about it too because I like having these thoughts like come out about when I'm watching the scenes. But there is something powerful, but just watching them two sit together while their two daughters are boating, off in the distance. It's just this feeling of there's just this feeling of you can tell it's the last time they're all going to be together like this,
Yeah.
And like when she even gets up first, she stands up by herself. The wife does, and then he gets up and stands right next to her, and then they both wave, and just like it's like a brutal but a beautiful moment at the same time.
Yeah, and it's like a allegory for what's about to happen to them boating into life. going on.
But to me that's why. That's why it doesn't even feel like to me it doesn't even feel like allegory because it feels like the characters are aware of it too.
Okay.
Like that's especially her. Like she sees that this is their last time together and everything.
Okay. I can see that, yeah.
Because I think he even says, I think it might be in the previous scene, he said something like, I kind of want to go golf or something.
Yeah.
And that golfing is actually significant in both movies, too.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of that, basically that's what the leisure activity of the business, modern business, the salaryman is, Now, we'll save it for Autumn Afternoon, but Borwell says how like an Autumn Afternoon has Ozu's like upgraded version of the salaryman film, especially with the older brother, with his golf clubs and everything.
Yeah.
But okay, to get back to Equinox Flower, this is kind of where it's revealed after that last day, and I'm glad I didn't get that confused. It's only revealed after. I'm pretty sure. It's only revealed after that scene that the father finds out.
Yeah. He doesn't know before.
Yeah, he doesn't know before.
Yeah.
So he only finds out after when the fiance comes and asks. He basically says, "I have to think about it," but he's really just against it.
Yeah.
He confronts the daughter at home. And this is a crucial scene because it's kind of like I mentioned it at the beginning when I was talking about Late Spring with when the father at the end where he says something like you kind of have to create your own happiness, happiness takes effort, that big speech. It's another twist on that where she tells her father in this scene, she says, why can't I find my own happiness?
Yes.
Basically, and then she says, I'll find my own happiness without you guys.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I think that's what Ozu's trying to say, at least that's how he saw it, was one of the significant changes between the modern world and maybe the more traditional Japanese family was the modern world says you don't need your family to have that kind of happiness. You know? Like, in some ways it's kind of telling you to leave your family to go find that happiness.
Yeah.
Even if it's not telling you that on the surface, and it's kind of telling you that in terms of you have to move away from your family, like it's hard to be around them, like.
Well, it's not even like hard to be around them. It's just like you don't need them as much because there's a lot of opportunities in Tokyo.
Like think about how
to live by yourself or to like make it on your own. So.
Like think about this is all true all around the world, but for most of civilization, your family name meant something because that's how you got a job or something. That your family name was known with your craft,
status,
a lot of your
social
status,
status,
your job, literally a lot of times. Like that's how you were known. So it's important to have that kind of traditional aspect. Family aspect to who you were as a person. But the modern world kind of breaks that almost and says like in a good and bad way, you could say. I don't think Ozu is saying it's good or bad necessarily. He's just saying that's what the modern world does, right? It's saying like a lot of kids in that time could say I can find my own happiness without you guys, and the films are kind of about the grandparents and parents having to deal with that reality. Yeah, that's why I think the scene is it's so good, because I think there's actually another scene where they also have the same kind of fight. Because it kind of goes the way it's structured is they have that conversation. She leaves angry. She goes to her boyfriend's or fiance's house. They basically kind of resolve and still say we'll be fine together kind of thing, and then they go back. She goes back and she tells him basically, I have my own plans, and he says, what kind of plans? Tell me. And he says, she says, even if I did, I don't think you'd understand. And that's kind of like maybe just another aspect of basically there's this gap that both sides can't come across almost. And to me, I see that almost as the train representing that. It's almost like the modern world is leaving behind certain people behind, like certain traditional aspects behind, and traditions leaving behind can't even see, why. Or, I don't know if that makes sense, if you guys see what I'm saying. But
no, I do.
Okay. No, but the next scene is it's maybe my funniest scene in the movie to me. That's what I wanted to mention is, and it's also a bar that's in both movies. It's called the Luna Bar, and it's where he's interviewing.
By the way, I just had to defend myself. I feel like because last week I said this is like why I wanted Tokyo Twilight to be at least that one section in colors because of this fucking shot here and the fucking shot in Ananam Afternoon of just like the neon lit of like bar streets, just these side streets. That's what I wanted lit. That's what I wanted colored. Like Jesus Christ.
No, you're still thinking wrong about that.
No, Tokyo Twilight black and white fits though.
No, black and white.
It's the most fitting.
But that one neon, that one street that she walks down, Tokyo Twilight, I wanted to see in.
Just pull like an Obayashi and just like randomly have that in color. Like, exactly. It'd be so out of place, but why not?
But why not?
No, but the reason why they go to this bar is he's talking to, I think it's one of his employees that says he knows who his daughter's marrying, so he wants to talk to him about him. And they're like, he has this long conversation about like,
I mean, this scene's so
basically
funny.
He says they play basketball together, and he's basically asking him who he is and stuff, and all he can say is like what he's like on a basketball court. Yeah. And at the end of it, he's like, "Do you even know this guy?" Yeah. He's like, "I barely know him. We just he was like a delivery.
It's like
guy.
we just went to school together, basically."
Yeah. No. He says he works at the office. I was just a delivery guy there.
Yeah. Oh my god. But this whole scene's so fucking good just because like he's obviously a regular there.
Oh yes, that too. Yes.
But he doesn't want his boss to know because, like, how would I mean, I wouldn't want my bosses to know I was like a regular at like a bar or anything. Like,
it would just be awkward to sit with your bar alone, with your boss alone like that at a bar. Because the waitress is like trying to like act like he's a regular. He's like trying to.
He just like gives like stares daggers at her, just like talking or like stop. It's so good.
Okay, these kind of tie together because he does. There's like he goes to Luna Bar. There's a scene of him coming back home where he basically argues with his wife, and it's kind of a funny moment where I think it's Ozu like making fun of the father, where he basically yells at his wife and he says, "I will not allow this wedding under any circumstances." He says something like that. He yells at her, and then he basically like takes off all his clothes where he's just wearing like his underwear, basically like, all his underwear stuff, and. But it plays like some kind of, I'm pretty sure it's patriotic music. I don't remember what kind of music it is. But it's basically kind of like making fun of him, like where he's like walking around like a general, but he's like basically knowing what's going to happen in the end of the movie, where he's just giving this huge speech of how she's not going to get married and like, he's going to like put his foot down. Just knowing how the movie's going to end and everything that happens right after that point, it just makes that moment even funnier knowing it this time.
I mean, the music is just like funny, really funny. Oh my god.
No, because then this is where it comes back to. This is where it comes back. This is my favorite part of the movie, or the funniest part anyway. Maybe not my favorite, because it cuts back to him coming to the bar again, alone this time. This guy who's been who wanted to hide from his boss, that he comes there.
Yeah,
and he orders. He doesn't think anything's gonna happen, and then the camera cut. This is why Ozu's cuts are so amazing, because. The fact that you get used to the fact that every time Ozu cuts, you know something new is going to happen, right? It's not like in a conversation between two people in most movies, they'll cut even if the one person's talking a long time, they'll cut back and forth on the faces and stuff a lot. But Ozu, every time he will always stay on an action until it's completed, or a dialogue from a sentence until it's completed. He always stays the same person. Yeah. So in a situation like this, when we see him drinking in close up, and then it cuts to a shot of the door behind him. with him still drinking, you know something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it's probably like I don't know if you guys guessed that the boss is gonna come.
Oh yeah.
You kind of have to, but it's like this is like Ozu going to his comedy roots, you know.
Yes.
But basically, this is what makes an Ozu cut like that amazing. It's because you know something's gonna happen that he doesn't know. And then we see the waitress kind of look at his face. She kind of looks at him like, oh shit, he's not even looking still.
Yeah.
And then when the boss comes in, like we see him, he turn around and he like basically is shocked. And then the boss or the father says something like, oh, you're here again?
Yeah.
And like just like if you're just hiding from you're trying to hide from your boss that you drink a lot, and then you just randomly see your boss.
It's so
there.
fucking funny because the conversation he's having with the hostess, because he's going back to being all chummy with everyone in there, like he's back to his regular self, and then she's like, "You're not scared he's gonna come back in here?" He's like, "No, he'd never come back here. He'd never come back here."
He makes fun of the bar.
He's like, a man like him would never be caught here again. And then it just cuts right behind him. It's so fucking funny, man.
No, it's so good because
I mean, like, in theory, that doesn't even seem that funny. Like when you say it out loud, like if someone hadn't seen the movie, but like I don't know, it just makes it work. Honestly, I don't know.
No, he does. And it kind of sets us up though too for the main thing that's going to happen and why this movie is more lighthearted, even though it still deals with the same kind of themes. So we get this kind of minor comedic bit, but then the next actual major scene that happens is the actual trick that happens is when
we have missed his conversation with Chishiryu's daughter too, haven't we? Because that's also kind of a major part.
That's actually during this part.
Oh, is it? Okay.
That's actually that same scene because that's why he comes back the second time.
Yeah.
Because she's working. She works there.
Because like that's one of the things that because it's an important part later on where Chishiryu's talking to the dad and like they're talking about like have you seen your daughter again? Because that's the whole reason he went there the first time is saying like he wants to see you. And Chishiryu's was like, yeah, she's doing better than I thought. And, like, they basically reconciled. And that's... I don't know if that, like, gave the dad some hope. Because I don't remember exactly where in that... I think it was after the wedding that they had that conversation. So I think that was meant to give him some hope and kind of what maybe, like, led to him also going on the train. Yeah. But yeah, like, this conversation with her and just basically him asking her how she's doing... Because, like, it's so weird, the parallels on this, because he cares more for, like, his friends' daughters than he does for his own, it seems like. On the, yeah.
At least that's kind of the theme, I think, of a lot of Ozu's movies, but it's very specific in this one, is... it's... You know how when a lot of people will say... It's easy for me to give advice when I'm talking to about someone else, but it's hard for me to apply in my own life. Yeah. Like, this movie is the classic example of that. Where he, like, it does literally seem like he cares more about, or he's more objective, he's more rational when he's helping his friends out with his daughter's problems and stuff like that. Yeah. But he's very emotional when he's dealing with his own daughter. Yeah. You know? And that's basically another, just like a film example of that. Where I think Ozu, it kind of, and that maybe leads us to this this basically I called it the scheme or the plot, the trick of the movie, and I think it's kind of like a meta commentary of Ozu saying like this is what Ozu's movies itself do, you know, where they basically you can see them as tricks to get you to think about your own life. Okay. You know, where if you use characters that are similar to our situations or make them think about our own situations, ideally they would get you to think about your own life. You know, because that's what film is. Like Ozu understood this. Film is at the end of the day, it's a very fake medium. You know, it's not. It's like you're presenting everything. You know, you're still building everything. Yes. That's why all of us sets are perfect. Anyway, he's not trying to say this is real life. Yeah. But it's like supposed to feel like real life or make you think about real life. Yeah. You know, like that's you know maybe a conversation for another day. But we talked about that with Fellini. You know, of realism versus. You know, literally real versus realism.
We talked about that with Bertov too. So.
No, same thing. Yeah, exactly. No, but the scene is great too because he says something like she goes on this long thing about how basically describing the same situation the daughter's in, and he ends it like, "Yeah, then just do as you wish. You know, you don't have to listen to your mom." Yeah. It's kind of amazing because like it's something that's very believable too. But when you actually watch this guy live his life, at this point we feel like we've watched him live his life. You know,
we kind of get who he is.
Yes, exactly. How he is at work, how he is with his friends. You know, how he's at home. You know. But yeah, so then when he gives that advice, then right after that, the trick is revealed. It's like, it's so perfect.
It is.
Because it does, like, I still remember the first time I watched it. It definitely shocked me too when she says that.
Yeah, no, it did me.
Yeah.
And the best part is like he's so shocked he can't even do anything. Like that's what it feels like. Like it feels like he wants to get mad, but he's just like can't.
He's like, damn.
Because he's like, they got me. Like, they fucking got me. Like,
because that's kind of the whole point of he's in this modern system, and he feels more modern because he realizes it with other people.
Yeah,
he's giving her the kind of modern advice of that you would expect, right? So he kind of understands the system already. But then when he gets tricked like to that degree, it's like he, like you said, he's kind of helpless. He just has to accept it, because he understands it still. It just. Do you think I don't know? Like, I think it's because he understands that it's because of the system he's in that he has to help. It's not like he ever wants to. And maybe we've come back to that point that we were talking about. Do you think it's like? Do you think he ever has that realization? Oh, I was a hypocrite. Now I see my daughter is good, or she's right.
I think he understands he is deep down, but he still is holding on to that pride. Yeah, throughout the rest of it. Until that, I honestly think he's holding on to that pride even until the last scene where he gets on the train. But even that, like his wife basically telling him on the phone, "You're getting on the fucking train."
And
like, that's basically him giving up his pride.
The same girl basically starting that whole thing.
Yeah. Like I feel like that's basically him giving up his pride at the end. Like I think he wants all this to happen. Honestly, he would have rather it happened like with his daughter actually trusting in him enough to like tell. But I think deep down he realizes he was a hypocrite and But I think he's mad about it. I think he's mad that he got tricked like this, though. That's the thing.
And that's why I said that there's that two aspects of it. It's the first aspect of it is he doesn't want his daughter is getting married to someone he didn't pick. Yeah. But the second is she didn't even tell him about it. Yeah. And this is the only way they could do it is through trickery, basically. Yeah. That's why I don't feel like it's a clear resolution of now he accepts it because it does have to happen through trick for him to do it. You know? And then
it's kind of like Late Spring how. The father, the only way he got his daughter to be married is through a trick, basically.
Yeah. Same thing.
Or was it a trick?
No, it's a trick. Yeah.
Or was it a trick, kind of?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, no, we had that whole conversation in Late Spring. Was it a trick or was it not?
Oh, yeah, we did. I mean, when does the father?
Yeah, because we had that same thing where the father, where I thought he wanted to get married until he saw Setsuko Haru's like reaction to him actually saying that. But
and that's the thing. That's kind of what I love about Ozu's characters is there's just he always leaves it at that level of nuance. Yeah, there's not any scene where the character gives you what's they're actually one way or the other or fully on one side or something. Yeah, he's still taking the train, but it's almost like you could even start an Ozu movie there. Where they're going to visit the daughter or something.
Tokyo Story 2.
Story tour.
Fuck, yeah. You'd have to cut a few years, maybe. They have a kid.
Yeah. They have a kid.
Tokyo Story 2, Infinity War.
Oh, God.
Well, we kind of talked about the ending, but I'll kind of briefly go through it as... there's a great moment. I love this moment of Kaneo Tanaka. She's at home listening to the radio again. Is it like No Theater or something, or maybe it's Kabuki? I think it's Kabuki.
Yeah, probably Kabuki.
Because she's kind of like dancing around. She's like it's like her version. It's like an Ozu's version of dancing, Because it's so funny because when you notice like how Ozu's movies characters are basically all very rigid for the most part. They're all very straight. They only move in certain ways and everything, very exact. Yeah.
They never run or anything. I never even thought about that. Like,
there's a few like. Maybe they're just like walking fast, but that's
they're biking.
Or biking. But that's why in this one it stands. There's actually one moment in each movie that stands out. And this one, it's her like when she's listening to the radio, she's kind of just moving. She's jamming out. And the way I didn't know people jammed to Kabuki Theater on the radio, but that was actually good to know. That was good to know. Though.
Get on the wave, catch up.
No, No, but it's because there's a moment on Autumn Afternoon that really stands out in the patriotic bar scene with the kind of the Navy guy he meets when he actually gets up and he starts dancing. It's like that's like really rare to see in an Ozu movie. With, like a guy
they're all like dancing.
It's almost like he starts doing that without Ozu's approval. Almost,
like sit back down.
Yeah. No, but he left in the movie, so we'll get to that. But yeah, basically we already talked about that conversation between her and the father about how he's basically being inconsistent and not being he's not being consistent. I guess I forget what word she uses. It might just be consistent. But that's when we see him golf. It's a great song. It's great music when we see him golfing and everything. And that's when he talks to the friend. We've talked about all this where basically he decided to get married. We'll just skip to.
We talked about the end of the beginning. You know?
We did talk about the end. So, did we talk about the reunion?
Oh, slightly because we talked about the song that they sing already.
We did. I don't know. Is there any last words then you guys want to say about the ending? Because we did kind of talk about the ending already. Is there any last words you guys want to say?
Amazing ending.
No, yeah, I love the ending. I mean, I just love the trick again. I just love that they did it again. So,
yeah.
Because I really do, like I said already, I really do think that it is like the dad, maybe like not willingly giving in, but like kind of like going like this is where it's going. Like life moves on, you know, like time goes on, like you said.
Like the trains move on.
Yeah, like the trains move on. I don't know.
Like he has to give in, like.
Well, like what you said about like the train, like leaving behind tradition, like it's kind of what it symbolizes at the end of this. Like he's getting on the train, you know. Like he's got that, exactly. Like that itself is like him leaving his tradition behind.
Yeah.
So
literally with the train. Yeah.
Going to visit his daughter. So.
No, that's a good way to put it. No, I agree. But yeah, that's Equinox Flower.
Amazing title too.
Oh, great!
Amazing title. Amazing title.
Is there a significance behind it or?
Well, an equinox is.
Let me see.
It's a space thing.
Yeah.
Constellations, maybe.
It kind of sort of signifies
the end of something,
seasons,
right? Like the
season.
changing
of seasons. Yeah.
Okay. I remember. I knew I had my notes somewhere, but apparently it stands for the amaryllis flower, which puts out clusters of red blossoms. And that's why there's like little accents of red everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. The teapot's that's like one of those most famous shots. The teapot we see a couple times.
I mean, it's a great shot. Like there was that one shot that just sitting in the corner. Like, okay.
What does it mean? What's the symbolism?
I have no idea.
Teapot.
But okay, we'll go to An Autumn Afternoon, Ozu's last movie, and I think we kind of talked about earlier about how it doesn't, like, at least in my opinion. There are aspects of it that make it feel like Ozu's last movie, but to me, it's just like another Ozu movie. You know, in a way, just like another chapter in Ozu's career. And the reason why I say that is, it is weird. Like I think if you ask a lot of people that just watched, like they didn't know much about Ozu, but they just watched Tokyo Story for the first time or something because they saw it in Sight and Sound.
Yeah,
they would probably guess like that director when he made Tokyo Story was like in his 60s. Or something. You know, but he was not. Like, he was, I think, in his 40s or maybe early 50s.
Okay, well, no, so 53, Tokyo Story, count 53.
And this is
62, so 9 years later.
So 51.
51. Yeah,
so,
that's not that old.
No, that's not old. Like, for some directors, that's their prime. You know?
Honestly.
That's kind of what I'm saying. That's what I feel about this movie, too. Where it doesn't feel like that old person movie necessarily. Okay, yeah. It's more that Ozu just dealt in these kind of themes that people associate with old people movies or something, or like end of life movies. But Ozu has those themes in his early movies too. You know,
yes.
That's why I don't feel like it's more a swan song more than just.
I feel like a lot of Ozu movies you could say like are good last movies for a director. Like he's just that way, you know.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. He has. There is aspect of nostalgia in Ozu for sure, but it's not like just like giving in to nostalgia. You know, it's kind of a little more detached nostalgia, at least in my opinion, and that's why maybe it feels like that too. Because like you maybe think about if a director's making a swan song, they're kind of looking back. You know? So maybe that's why.
I see. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, he is kind of looking back. Like that is significant that this is basically a remake of Late Spring, but.
Yeah. Remake?
I mean, it's not like kind of. Yeah.
Similar, yeah. All right,
it's very similar. I mean, it's like remade, but basically just about the dad.
There's little shots that are like I've seen clips and videos of like people putting this in Late Spring, certain shots from each movie, and they're like the exact same.
Oh yeah, but that's the thing. You can do that with a lot of Ozu movies. That goes with he filmed the shot everyone the same way. Camera position same way.
I feel like with this one, it's like more obvious.
This one, it feels like Late Spring, but just only focused on the dad and not as much on the daughter. Or like the dad
and his friend.
Definitely, yeah.
Which that's definitely my favorite part about this movie.
Yeah,
like, other than the color too.
To me, I kind of disagree because I do think the daughter is more involved than you're saying. And there is some, maybe we'll get to it when we're specifically talking about it, but there is some aspects to her that are very similar to Noriko too. just kind of with her. We don't fully see what she thinks about the situation.
No. Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's a lot like Late Spring.
Yeah, but you were saying it was more about the father, though. That's what I'm
Yeah, no, it's not. No, I mean, like, the story's still definitely about the daughter. But in terms of, like, whenever I'm comparing to, like, Late Spring, it's obviously way more.
Okay,
in terms of, it's, like, way more. It's following Shishiryu this time.
And to me, it's not only about Shishiryu, it's also more about the brother, too. The older brother. That's also married. Who just got married. Because watching it this time, their relationship stood out to me way more. I'm kind of just... I don't know if it's specifically what gets her to make the decision that she's ready to get married, but there's like a moment, there's a part in the movie where she goes to give the money that the brothers asked the dad to borrow money, and so she's come over to bring it to them. And when it's basically that scene where she basically kind of watches their relationship, where they're basically deciding that the wife decides that he can buy the golf clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And to me, it's like that scene is like important in terms of like. Basically, in her mind, thinking, like, she could get married. You know, she could do that, kind of. You know, she could live this life, you know, where basically the wife doesn't control the money and basically everything. But, yeah. Let me see if there's anything... Oh, yeah. There's some general points I wanted to get to before we get specifically talking about it. So, the original title for this movie, at least in Japanese, or I guess the literal title, is... it means the taste of sama. And sama is a variety of mackerel. Which is a fish? Which type of fish?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the taste of sama. I guess I like an autumn afternoon way better. Obviously, it just feels like a more.
Yeah, it's honestly definitely one of the.
It's one of those situations where like if you knew Japanese, it would make more sense in the context for sure.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, also I like the would you call it? Is it called alliteration, where it's all the words are the same, start with the same letter?
Alliteration.
Yeah, is that what it's called?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm talking about the literary term for that.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that in the title. And autumn afternoon. It's just it's amazing.
No, and Borwell points out that this title could make sense. Like one of my favorite characters in an Ozu movie, the Gourd, in this one, the drunk teacher, basically the whole time. He says when they're eating like octopus for the first time, he says he's eating octopus for the first time. Yeah, and so basically like. That I don't know, like he connects that. That's why it would be a good title for the movie too. Kind of like tasting that for the first time, or that kind of taste, you know.
Gotcha.
The feeling of tasting something for the first time.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Makes sense.
But yeah, he talks about how there's also another parallel. There's another central parallel in this one too, and this one is between Okay, actually, let me read them off because there's actually 5, and it's actually no, because I remember I said Equinox Flower with the boss who talks to the employee at the beginning. It's actually in this movie.
Yeah.
So
okay,
because Bordeaux puts it out interesting where he says in the first scene alone we get to like 4 or 5 different parallels to what the main daughter's going through. So he says in the first scene we learn that the Hirayama is the dad's name in this one, Shishiryu's character. We learn that his subordinate's getting married to someone else. We learn that the secretary is unmarried, but she still lives with her father, and that's why she's not married. We then learn that Shishiryu's friend has found a prospect for his own daughter. And then we learn that, this is where we learn that the friend, that their friend, when they go to the bar later, he's also married a young wife that's around his daughter's age. And then also, we learn that this is later on in the film. We learn where the war veteran he meets, the guy that he trained during the war. He says that that guy says that his daughter just got married too. So basically, it's almost like Ozu's trying to like put into the main character's face just as much as possible of like, you have to marry your daughter. You have to marry your daughter. You know, just everything that's going around him almost. And he wants the audience to get that same kind of feeling. You know.
Yes. And I did.
Oh, you definitely do. It's especially with the beginning when he's at the work and you see it like 2 separate times. It's pretty funny. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to mention before we started. Oh yeah, Borwell mentioned this too, and that's kind of wanted to mention it specifically. Is that's why I think rewatching it this time, the daughter's name is Michiko, and I think because I've seen this 3 times now. The first 2 times. I did think it was more Shishiryu's movie than her movie, kind of like how you're saying. But this time watching it, it does feel like more to me, it is kind of even, at least very even, if anything. And the reason I say that is because watching it this time, and Borwell pointed this out in his book, he says how she gets the same kind of, he says, oblique narrational treatment. Well, basically, that kind of, basically mysterious treatment of how he treats a lot of his main heroines.
Yeah.
And he points out Late Spring, Early Summer, Equinox Flower as the examples of where we really never get exactly what she's thinking.
Yeah.
Anytime in the movie,
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's a moment, the key moment in the movie is where they have to tell her that the guy she wants to marry is already getting married. And then she kind of like puts her head down. You think she's really sad, and then she puts her head right back up, and she says she's like, okay. She goes into a room, and then the brother comes and says she's crying.
Yeah.
So basically she's already trying to hide from them what she's feeling. But then when it cuts back to her in the room, it basically just like, it shows her like with a tape measure or something, and she's like just wrapping her hand, and then it ends like that. We never get any thoughts of like, is she okay with marrying the new person? Like, how's she feeling?
She never like airs it out herself or anything.
Nothing like that.
Like a usual movie would do. Yeah.
No. But yet it's her whole, that marriage is how the whole movie's based on.
Yeah.
Yet she's like, in some ways, she's the most mysterious character throughout the whole movie.
So, yeah.
And watching through Ozu this time, he's noticed that with a lot of his heroines. So just why they feel so, that's why they feel so unique in film history to me, is like they kind of have that mysteriousness about them almost. And I realized this is kind of off topic, but this is one of the reasons I really like Kinoshida's Carmen's Innocent Love too. Because it's like almost in his own way, like this kind of mysterious heroine aspect, where you don't really get everything. You don't get the reasons why they're doing everything.
Yeah.
You don't even get reasons into their thoughts a lot, or any thoughts really. You get more into you get a lot of ideas of what the characters surrounding them, what they think about the main character, but you really don't get into the main character themselves.
Yeah.
Which kind of love. But is there anything that comes to mind when I say that? Like, do you guys agree with that?
No, I agree with that. Whenever I was saying it's more like Shishi Ryu's movie, it's just in terms of screen time primarily, because it's definitely obviously about the daughter as well. But I also, in terms of that scene that you were talking about, whenever Shishi Ryu comes up, I thought that he was going to comfort her. But he just comes up saying, "So do you want to meet the other guy?" And I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, no, they really.
Like
it's kind of just emphasized. I might have mentioned this. I think I mentioned at the beginning how An Autumn Afternoon is kind of significant in terms of like in some of the other movies where we get a lot of the family shots of the family eating together and stuff.
Yeah.
An Autumn Afternoon has none of those shots.
Yes.
Almost like Ozu saying that kind of period is already over, even though the characters are still living together. They're already kind of apart.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like, now we're just watching it really come apart physically, at least.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you guys wanted to mention generally about the movie before we get into it?
I'm ready.
Alright. Borwell pointed this out, and that's kind of how I'll talk about it. And you'll have to, if I forget like anything, you'll have to remind me. Is talk about how this movie is really strict in terms of basically the cycles it goes through. In terms of, it usually shows Shishi Ryu as the main guy, and it'll basically show his day of usually starting at work, and then he'll go to the bar or something, and then he'll go home, and then he'll go to sleep, and that's how a new day or a new cycle will start.
Yeah.
And there's like 5 or 6 of them in the movie. But that's why his movies feel so like realistic, is you get caught in those cycles with him.
Yeah.
Like it's just like almost the everyday of he goes to work, he goes to the bar, and then he goes home.
Tokyo Twilight kind of does that too in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not as like.
Do we get work
structured.
shots? Do we see our work?
Work. Well, I was mainly thinking of like how like
the structure of where the places they're going to,
and like there's always like a certain constant throughout the days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So I mean, the first cycle is just we see the friends at the bar for the first time, and this is where we meet. Why do you think Ozu puts this character in here of the friend that has married a young wife?
I think that's like literally supposed to be Shishi Ryu. Well, first Shishi Ryu going like, maybe I can marry that young girl that he meets at the bar, but also him going like, shit, if I don't marry my daughter off, she might have to marry a guy like this. Like, because at a certain point, like, because that's what he's worried about, is like he's waited too long to find her a suitable husband. She'll have to marry like someone that she doesn't want to, or like that might have to be older than her or something like that.
Because to me, it's more like and that's a good interpretation. I didn't even think about it like that because I thought about it from the other way of it's almost like it's like the thing where they see that friend as doing the thing that they didn't have the courage to do almost.
Oh yeah, that too,
for
sure. Yeah.
Where they're like they don't want to admit like they're jealous of him. That's why they keep asking him all these kind of like questions, basically about his sex life. But they don't want to say it, so they keep kind of hinting at it. But it's almost like because they the scene where it ends where I think the wife comes and he says like, "Oh, sorry, I have to leave you guys early.
Yeah.
You'll have to get mad at me later for it." And then when he leaves, the other friend says, "I wouldn't want to end up like that." But they both just like. They just both silent. They stay silent after that.
Yeah.
It's almost like he knows they're lying. At least that's how I saw it. That's why I think he's there. It's almost like he's like the Shisha Ryu's character in Late Spring if he would have got married, remarried.
Okay. No, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like what you said in like Equinox Flower. It's like that could be another Ozu movie in a way.
Yes. No, exactly. Because there is even a part where at the end where Shisha Ryu, it reminds me of a scene in Late Spring where Shisha Ryu tells his friend that you're starting to become a little dirty to me. Yeah. And I was like, damn, that's like something in Late Spring where she keeps calling him dirty for getting remarried. No, but that's why it's so. Because he's not that man of a character, but it's just like... No. I want to know what you guys thought about why... Luke, do you have any specific reason why, or you just think...
Honestly, I mean, I think both of you guys are, like, right, basically. I mean, like, I think it's kind of both of them. I sort of think I agree more with Blake, honestly. Blake's more reason...
I think you're right.
Yeah, but both of you guys are definitely, like, right in some way.
Well, I think you're right.
But there is a certain moment later on in this movie where Shisha Ryu. Well, it's actually whenever they play the prank on him again, where they play the prank on him this time, like where he lost his friend's prospect because the other friend was first or whatever. Like he came in first. They play that prank on him at the bar later.
Yeah.
Because that's whenever it kind of clicked with me. Like Shisha Ryu got really worried that he was gonna have to no one was gonna be able to marry his daughter. Basically.
Yeah, with the prank they play him at the end.
Yeah.
It's like a little cruel almost.
It is a little.
His reaction for sure.
Oh yeah, the reaction's bad.
No, because my reaction. Watching it the first time for sure, I remember being like, "Damn!" Like I'm on his side, like, "Oh, like, now he's really fucked." Because he already feels bad for basically not letting her get married in time, where she loses the guy she wanted to marry.
Yeah,
that's kind of how it's implied. Like it's both his fault and the brother's fault.
Yeah, well, it's not even implied. It's just like even the friend goes like, "I wish you would have told me sooner."
Damn. Yeah, no, exactly. No, because that's also another. Yeah, there's a lot. I guess that's another similarity with Late Spring too, right? Because the guy she wants to marry is already getting married.
Yeah, and he also kind of wants to get her. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I wish I would have known sooner. But I think how you're right about the reason why that friend who has a young wife is there is because that kind of parallel compared to his own daughter is the next kind of in the next cycle. I'll say is the scene where we meet the Gourd for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is during the reunion where they have the reunion for. I just like saying the Gourd. It's like it's a great nickname. Yeah, and it's so funny when because they're asking about the different teachers and stuff that he remembers, and they all have nicknames like the Badger and stuff. And damn, I wish I would have put it down in my notes, but because Bordwell says like some of the names, like specifically the Badger, but I think maybe some of the other names, they're actually names for teachers from some of his early silents. Like, there's actually a teacher... I think in There Was My Father, the teacher's name is the Badger. They call him the Badger or something. There's also another early Ozu silent that has the Badger in it, too. But basically, Ozu's more self-referential than we give him credit for. Even though all of his movies feel self-referential in some way. Because like there's the same themes and stuff.
He is literally like one of the more self-referential characters, honestly.
It's just so overt, it doesn't even feel self-referential. It's just like, that's Ozu.
That's a good point,
no, but that's why I think the Gourd is... Because the Gourd says his daughter... basically his daughter never got married.
Yeah.
And so it's like... I talked about this with Equinox Flower, but he's also... it says in this one too, where he's basically... Ozu does, in some ways... He puts it very clear in your face what the movie's about. You know?
Yeah.
Like, in this case, like... There's a little character going through, like, what Shisha Ryu is scared of what's going to happen to him if he doesn't get his daughter married. With the Gourd, who's literally, like, basically drunk all the time, and he's like, I should have got my daughter married. He, like, literally saying, I should have got my daughter married.
Well, and the daughter... I don't know, because this is I'm pretty sure the daughter's played by the same girl that's been in a lot of his movies, right? Like the aunt, isn't she? She's in this movie.
The aunt.
The aunt of in Late Spring, or
I know what you're
the
talking
sister
about.
of Tokyo Story. Isn't she who plays
Which
her in this
character is
movie?
she?
The daughter of the Gourd.
Yes.
Yeah, she
right.
is,
Yes,
because
yes.
It honestly.
I was going to get to that scene where they take her back. Where they take him back.
Yeah, because this is, I think, where he really also doesn't want. He doesn't want his. He's not scared of like how he ends up. More so, he's scared of like what his daughter is going to end up like, and how she's going to think of him if she stays like this.
No, yeah.
Because like I feel like the Gourd even implies that his daughter used to want to stay with him, but now it feels like she's trapped there, basically.
No,
and that's exactly what's going on in like Shishiryu's house in this movie. Like his daughter's saying she wants to stay with them, and she wants to, but like he doesn't want her to end up like the Gourd's daughter.
Yeah, no, exactly.
He doesn't want his daughter to end up hating him for not marrying her, basically.
No, exactly. And it's a brutal scene too, because when like, if you just think about all the dynamics in that scene, where they bring the Gourd home and he's like really drunk.
Yeah.
And it's like where the Gourd is like sitting down, or he's like laying down drunk, and the wife, or not the wife, the daughter, his daughter is sitting right next to him, like basically kind of embarrassed. And his two students are just standing, kind of watching and seeing like what's becoming not only his teacher, but kind of there's basically a lot of emotions going on, right? Yeah. He's like, not only you're seeing your teacher like this, but now he's thinking about his own relationship with his daughter and thinking like, this could be me, if I don't get her married.
Yeah.
But then this is what's significant is they both leave, and the camera hangs for quite a while on just the Gourd like drunk sleeping as she just looks at him, kind of just basically like what she's lost, and she just cries. It kind of just represents what you're talking about. Like it shows that real aspect of her life itself.
It's like resentment that wasn't there whenever it started, obviously, because she wouldn't have stayed with her father if she resented him like this. It's just a resentment that forms after you feel like you've basically been trapped.
And this is why I think this is what I was saying earlier when I was talking about the beginning of why I find Ozu's movies inspiring. Is like, to me, this is Ozu showing the example of this is what can happen if you're scared of change.
Yeah.
If you're scared of changing something because this is the way what things were and you kept it the same way. Because really, what he's saying is you can't keep things the same way. Like this is what happens if you keep things the same way. Things got worse.
You're sacrificing something.
Yeah, you're sacrificing. By resenting change or preventing change. That's why it's a really important scene in the movie too.
Yeah,
but it's also important too because this is where the Gourd is where the Luna Bar is, and this I think it's the next day where Shishiru goes back to visit the Gourd to see how he's doing and stuff. And I love this moment too because it's kind of like this is like Ozu's version of a jump scare. It's where he just randomly introduces a new character that kind of like shifts your perspective, where the whole time we're thinking of the relationships of the Gourd is the teacher, Shishiru is like the old student, But then all of a sudden when they're at the bar, it's like this new guy comes up and he's like, "Oh, Shishiru is my captain in the Navy." And now all of a sudden Shishiru is like the old teacher, and he's the student. This new guy is the student, and so they go to drink, and that's when I said earlier where the student also is like, "Oh yeah, I have a daughter and she just got married."
Yeah.
So now Shishiru like is feeling more pressure of like this guy who I taught, his daughter's already getting married. I'm behind, and the teacher who was in front of me, like, he didn't get his daughter married. Look what happened to him, So it's like, it's almost like that pressure both. You're like literally seeing that pressure she's feeling from both sides. Yeah. But I also just like this guy too. This is what I'm talking about him earlier too. He's a funny guy. Like, this is where, this is the bar where they see the
wife or the lookalike,
the lookalike wife. Yeah.
The bartender, the hostess.
But yeah, that's kind of, I've mentioned all that. There's actually a really great shot too of where we see all three generations basically, where we see the Gourd, where we see Shishiru, and then we see the younger guy too, basically all in one shot. It's really good. And Boardwell kind of pointed this out too, and it's a good point where a lot of the movie is these cycles of Shishiru every day seeing what he's doing, but there's like one main aside with the older brother and his relationship with his wife. And kind of their, more modern marriage, if you want to say, or something. So, what I love about this whole basically aside is with the golf clubs. Is where he brings the golf clubs home, and he has to ask the fact that he has to ask his wife if he can buy them and stuff. It's just like in some ways, I think Ozu's trying to still show like he's kind of a kid, you know, because he literally the way he gets money from the golf clubs is going to borrow from his dad.
Yeah.
And then he comes home and he has to give it to his wife, and she's the one that has to tell him whether or not he can buy the golf clubs in the first place. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like maybe just another take on that kind of this is what the modern man is now, like in terms of
sure.
women telling women telling men now how to spend
well,
their
women
money
telling men now, and also like you having to have your dad's still providing for you basically, even though you're married and out on your own. Like, you're still kind of reliant on your dad's money to some extent.
No, and I just love this shot of like. It like cuts to him like just swinging the golf club as she's yelling at him.
Yeah,
and he just like doesn't say anything. He just slowly like swinging the golf clubs as she's telling him like you have to go take these back.
Yeah.
But I guess during this whole golf side he does say that, and then the next scene is where the oldest daughter brings the money for them, and that's when she sees the wife be like, okay, you can buy these golf clubs now.
Yeah.
You're good. Yeah. And then the reason why I said this, she reminds me of Late Spring, is it's really starting with this moment, this scene, is when they're going back, she's going back home from their house. She meets the kind of, the guy she wanted to marry at the train station. And it's shot very similar to like something in Late Spring where the two guys are meeting they're staying at the train station, just talking, and you don't know if they're a thing or not. You don't even know how they feel about each other. And he says something to her like no one knows what to think about you or something, because he says something like, maybe I guess the modern man has to be meek now to be happy to make his wife happy, something like that. Like basically you should be meek for your wife, and then she says, but not too meek.
What does meek mean? I'm sorry.
Meek, like humble, you know, like basically humble, I guess.
Yeah,
like not
basically like soft spirited.
Yeah,
like
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
yeah, that's good. Yeah, basically like. I guess in a marriage situation, he's saying like the husband should give way to the wife, kind of thing, you know.
Okay. It's like more like masculinity.
It's like your tan, you know.
Yeah, because he says the guy says like, hey, I guess your brother is like really meek towards his wife, you know, and she says something like, you shouldn't be too meek, and he's like, you're just too hard to figure out or something like that. I forget what he says exactly, but he's kind of just pointing out this whole point of like, she's not straightforward, you know. It's hard. It's not like she thinks about this one thing, you know. Yeah. Or thinks this one way anyway. But the next cycle, I guess I have in my notes is basically Shishiryu goes to drink with the gourd again, and this is like kind of the central theme of the movie is, and you could say this in some ways. At least I've seen like in that I Live But documentary, there was a guy that mentioned this, where he says in a lot of ways Ozu's movies are about kind of dealing with the loneliness of the human condition in some ways, you know, or how we try to avoid it. And because the gourd gets really drunk, and he basically finally admits to like basically how alone he is.
Yeah,
you know, like he says something like life is all about being alone, even if you're with someone and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's kind of just like, to me, it's just kind of maybe the last kind of, at least in the script, to get Shishiryu to kind of accept he has to get his daughter married.
And I think it's interesting because I feel like Ozu has drunken confessions in his movies to reveal, as a way to reveal people's inner feelings, what they really feel, what they've been hiding.
He says, in the end, we spend all our lives alone.
Yep.
I wrote that one down because I love it.
Yeah.
But that's just like another thing I feel like he's using again, because I mean he uses it in like Tokyo Story, and I think he uses it in a few others, but I can't remember. But
what?
Drunken Confessions, basically.
Yes. Honestly, that's true with a lot of Ozu's movies, where you get like, this is why he loves drinking scenes too, because the alcohol is what's necessary to get people to go maybe more truthful to their lives, you know.
It lowers the barriers.
Yeah.
You don't know that yet because you're only 19. No, I'm just kidding.
I would never drink that.
No,
that's bad.
I mean, you kind of reminded me of that. I think I mentioned how I watched How's Cafe Lumiere today.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in that where you can tell he got this from Ozu, where basically she has to tell her parents something serious that's happened, but they're all sitting like quietly because they don't want to say anything. Yeah. And then, but then it cuts to her visiting her landlady downstairs or next door, and we don't know why. And then at the end, she's like, "Can I borrow some alcohol?" "No, we don't have any." And then they go back, they start drinking, and then they get into the conversation they have to have. And it's basically like literally what you're saying. It's like alcohol is literally what releases the barriers all the time.
Yeah.
And on a side note, you have to another reason why you should watch that, and you said you saw my tweet, but another reason you should watch that I Live But documentary is there's quite a few stories of basically how Ozu was around people and how much he used to like to drink. They talked to Kogonada's wife because, but you know how I said from Late Spring onwards they all wrote their scripts together. They wrote all their scripts together, and she goes through the process of how they wrote all their scripts.
Damn.
And how like she said they would like. I'm going off memory because I don't have this all memorized, but she says how they would wake up at 9 a.m. They would eat and then take a nap, and then go. They would eat, take a nap, and then they would go on a walk, and then they would come back, drink, and then they would eat, and then they would write their scripts. And then they would stay up till 12 or something drinking.
Just a little after breakfast nap.
I respect that.
I respect that too. That's funny.
Like wake up, eat, and then take a nap.
And then take a nap right after you wake up.
And then go on like a 2-hour walk. No, but what stands out is she talks about how much they drank. Basically every day while they're writing their scripts, they were drinking and stuff.
Is that how he died? Is that contribute to how he died? Because that's a lot of drinking. If he did that,
I wouldn't be surprised based on how they talked about it, but. But they say like he liked drinking. Basically, he was a very social person.
Pretty sure,
which is you wouldn't get that impression watching his movies or just hearing that he was never married or he lived his mother his whole life. You wouldn't get that impression. But that's why I would recommend the doc too, because I did get a new kind of perspective of Ozu that I didn't know about.
Okay.
No, but that's why we see so much alcohol in his movies too. Like he kind of understands the power of what alcohol can do.
And I love those scenes, so thank God he drank a lot.
Thank God he drank a lot.
Unless it contributed to his death, then I can't mess with alcohol.
So basically, I mean, I kind of wish there's a lot of stuff that happens, so I'll just go over quickly in terms of we find out that she can't get married to the guy she wants to because he's already engaged. Then they find
Late Spring Parallel.
Yes, Late Spring Parallel. So that's when they find this new guy for her. We don't know how she feels about it, as I mentioned earlier. But this is where we get the kind of like I said earlier, we talked about the cruel prank of where he comes in, he's like, okay, at least I have this guy for her, and then the friend is like, well, I already gave her to a different guy.
I gave her to my friend, to the friend.
No,
it was actually like. Yeah, they're like he's talking to him and he's like, is the other guy still ready to meet? And he's like, yeah, she's still ready, or he's still ready. And then the friend's like, wait, what about my guy?
No, and like just watching this time, like Ryu's face and everything, like, he's like really panicking at this point.
Yeah,
definitely. Like, and you're on his side because you're like, damn, he should feel bad about her losing that first guy. Yeah, the guy she wanted to marry. But then if she lost this guy too, like you could literally see his face, like you never see. Because Ryu is normally, you think of him as the calm character. You think of him as the kind of, just the more calm, maybe the Ozu stand in a lot of his movies or something. But in this one, where he's actually like freaking out, you're kind of with him for a little bit, oh shit, like. And that's why Ozu's pranks actually make sense too, because Ozu would do something like that. Yeah. Where he would show this guy get married, all of a sudden getting married off screen to a new suitor, and the
thing that makes it funny is just because they literally pulled this prank earlier on their friend saying he died. Like it was so funny. Which that one was really funny.
But that one's really funny. We skipped over. Yes. No.
And you connected that with like a miracle, basically. Like.
Yes, I've thought about that more. Like the reason I called it a miracle is it goes more with the detached perspective that Ozu has in his movies, where you can do something like that. Where it's because it's not. The camera's never attached to any central perspective or anything. He can show a moment that almost feels like a prank or a miracle depending on how you look at it.
Okay.
Like for Ryu in that moment, it's almost like a miracle where now that she can.
Oh yeah, now that is
that kind of that emotional feeling of not having someone.
That's why he wasn't mad when they pulled the prank, because he was so relieved. That was a prank.
Yes. And that we literally feel that same emotion because we don't know that information already.
Yeah.
We've had that detached perspective. Yeah. No, but yeah.
Well, and it really goes in to like the parallels in this movie really just make it hit harder too. Just like that panic, because all the parallels we've been seeing is like you either marry your daughter off while she's young or she has no options. Like, like so, like the panic hits us too because like I think that's why we're just as invested.
I think that's why Ozu always shows the daughter that has to get married.
Yeah.
Because especially in just society in general, it feels like that's the more significant one. Where it feels like guys are allowed to just not get married longer, and kind of drift about and stuff. Like how she mentions late spring. Well, that's early summer, actually.
Well, yeah, whichever one where the 40 guy is.
Yeah, exactly,
the 40-year-old guy is.
Exactly. But that kind of just cuts to the last part of this movie where we get this parallel to the last wedding. The kind of she's in her wedding dress at her house in the room, very similar to Late Spring.
Yeah,
it's basically filmed exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And it's down to when she goes to bow down to her dad for the last time and thank him. She actually said, I forget exactly what she says in Late Spring, but she actually says something in Late Spring. But in this one, he says like, "Stop! I already know."
Damn.
Basically, almost literally saying like, "You've already said this in the Ozu movie before," literally. Because he says the exact same thing to her: "Be a good wife."
Yeah.
To her, he says in Late Spring, and he says like, "Be a good wife and be happy." Yeah. Damn. He says that same thing.
He's almost Fellini.
Yeah. Okay. And the last scene I want to talk. I mean. The last scene is very similar to Late Spring, with him coming home to an alone house, but his son is still there, which kind of makes it ironic too. And at least in my mind, saying like Ryu's not as alone as he thinks he is compared to Late Spring, because at least he still has a son there.
Or it's just saying like a son's love is different than a daughter's
that's also
love
true.
Too,
yeah.
So
That's also true. Yeah, that's true.
Because the son's funny whenever he comes home, because he's like, "Go to bed, Dad." Jesus, like.
No, and he's like,
he's like, "I'll make you breakfast."
He's like, "You've been drinking too much. Don't go dying on me." Or something.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, it's like it's a funny but sad moment at the same time. Yeah, because Ryu's drunk too. Like he is funny in terms of how drunk he is, but it is sad because it's like it does feel like Ozu is commenting on Late Spring a lot, because it's like in Late Spring he's not drunk or anything. It's just like he's more straight up sad. In this one, it's like we have that same feeling of Late Spring with us, but it's still more comedic and lighthearted towards it. Yeah. That same kind of last moment. Okay. But there was one more moment I wanted to mention. It's actually the scene before where he goes to the Luna Bar one last time.
Yeah.
Where the waitress that looks like his former wife asks him. She says, "Where have you been at a funeral?" And he says something like that.
Yeah.
And it's that same kind of theme I've been saying over and over. Is like the wedding and the death are kind of the same thing in Ozu's movies in a lot of ways, in terms of they're the ones that start something new. So
just a different dress code.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an autumn afternoon, and damn, we're done with Ozu. It's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah. We do some questions or favorite stuff.
Do you have? I don't want to rank them. I told you guys.
Yeah,
before,
just say. I'm saying your favorite.
Do you have a favorite? If you have one.
Tokyo Twilight.
Okay.
My favorite is either Tokyo Story
or
An Autumn Afternoon. So.
All right.
I really do think An Autumn Afternoon might be my favorite, though. It's fucking good, dude.
I can't pick a favorite. So.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to pick a
you
favorite.
Must pick one.
At least this time, I will say, Equinox Flower I really loved watching this time a lot more, but it just, I don't know, I can't pick a favorite. It's like
they're all great. Maybe
the way to put it is, David Bordwell mentioned this in his book, where like Ozu's movies, like watching Ozu's movies are like almost like watching just chapters in Ozu, you know?
Yeah.
Like each movie is like almost just a different chapter or a different take, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I feel like I can't rank them or I can't pick a favorite, because it's like
if you
read a book, you wouldn't just like rank your favorite chapters in them, you know? It almost feels like it's like you're picking out random. It's like too random, or it's like incomplete. You know, that's why it's like
I can't agree with you because I have an Ozu rank list on Letterboxd, so
I could rank them generally, maybe, you know, but I just have.
I see what you're saying. Though. I see what you're saying.
But.
All I'll say is basically all these are going to be 5s for me, so that we've done. So that's the problem. That's why I agree with you.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like they're
all
amazing.
Almost like a sense of
they're all amazing. So.
What mood or what character I want to see, or what more dynamic I want to see. You know,
and it's definitely a thing. It also will change your favorite like as you go through life, basically.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's another thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, what am I kind of feeling now? Like, based on what's going on, you know.
Yeah.
So, that's Ozu. Next week we're doing. I guess the idea behind it is we're doing movies that from directors or themes we did previously that we didn't do. So, like, for example, we did Chaplin, but we never did The Circus.
Floating Through Films Rejects.
Yeah, Floating Through Film Rejects. FTF Rejects. Yeah, I like that.
I like that title.
Yeah. So, but we don't know the movies yet, so it'll be in the description, so just look there. But, yeah, until then, hope to see you floating through the clouds.
Ozu.